The morning heat in Atlanta rose early that day, humming against the porch railings like a low warning. I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when the screaming began. "Malcolm, open this damn door." Her voice cracked through the still air, echoing off the quiet cul-de-sac. My sister-in-law, Vanessa, was pounding both fists against my front door hard enough to rattle the new deadbolt I had installed less than an hour ago. Each thud sent a hollow vibration through the frame, followed by her voice, shrill, angry, and desperate all at once. I did not move. I watched from the other side of the reinforced glass, calm as the morning itself. After 27 years as a firefighter, I had learned how to stand still in chaos. Screaming did not scare me anymore. Flames did. Betrayal did. The sun caught the sweat on her forehead as she slammed the door again. Neighbors began to peek through blinds. The Johnsons across the street paused their dog walk. A lawn sprinkler clicked rhythmically nearby, the only sound that felt normal. "You cannot lock me out like this," Vanessa yelled, voice breaking. "This is my family too." I almost answered, but stopped myself. Family. That word had been stretched too thin in this house. I glanced at the small black monitor on my counter. The Ring camera showed her from every angle, shaking, furious, mascara running in crooked lines down her cheeks. She looked like guilt wearing pride as armor. The locks gleamed in the morning light. Heavy-duty, grade 1 steel. They had cost me $312, but they bought me something priceless: distance. Behind her, a police cruiser turned slowly into the street. A neighbor must have called, or maybe the universe decided it was time. Either way, this was no longer a family argument. It was evidence in real time. She thought she was breaking into a house. She did not know she was breaking into proof. Because long before she screamed my name, karma had already clocked in for duty. The forged checks, the fake loan, the security footage, all lined up, waiting like dominoes behind this very moment. Every word she shouted was being recorded. Every step she took on my porch was being time-stamped. What she believed was power was already turning into prosecution. I sipped my coffee, steady and deliberate. The siren in the distance grew louder. Vanessa's eyes darted between the window and the street, realizing too late that this time, I was not the one trapped. She had played her game. Now, the truth was playing hers. Before we go any further, take a second to breathe. Stories like this are not about rage. They are about peace, the kind that costs you something to keep. If you believe peace is worth protecting, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Now let me take you back to the quiet mornings, the smell of cut grass, and the sound of a record spinning before everything began to fall apart. Most mornings started the same way. Coffee in my left hand, newspaper in my right, and Miles Davis playing low enough that the horns sounded like memory instead of music. The porch faced east, catching sunlight that poured through Georgia pines in broken streaks. The neighborhood woke slowly, sprinklers ticking, garbage trucks groaning, and kids waiting at the corner for school buses that were always late. I had lived on that street for 22 years. Every house had its rhythm, every face its pattern. You could tell who was struggling just by the way their grass grew. I had kept mine trimmed even after Lorna passed. She loved her garden too much to let it turn wild. Her roses bloomed along the fence like quiet survivors, pink against the red brick. Life had become simple after retirement. I had fought my share of flames, warehouses, kitchens, one church fire that still haunted my sleep. After 30 years in the department, you start craving quiet. I had earned that quiet, or at least I thought I had. Then Vanessa arrived. She called one Sunday evening, her voice wrapped in the kind of politeness that always hides urgency. "Malcolm, I just need a place for a little while," she said. 3 weeks, maybe a month. The hospital cut hours, and my apartment's lease is up. You know how it is. She was Lorna's younger sister, always dramatic, always the loudest in the room, but she had a way of making you feel guilty for noticing. After Lorna's funeral, she became distant. Then, out of nowhere, she started showing up again, first at church, then at Sunday dinners, bringing pound cakes that never quite rose right, but always came with compliments. Letting her stay felt like the right thing to do. Family looks different when half of it is gone. I told her she could take the guest room and offered to help her get back on her feet. At first, it almost felt like healing. She cooked sometimes, cleaned a little, and laughed at the old stories I used to tell about the firehouse. She even took care of the roses when my back started to ache. For a while, the house sounded alive again. Pots clanging, TV humming, her gospel playlist drifting through the hallways. But grief and gratitude make people blind. I did not see the small shifts, the ones that come before betrayal. It began with money on the counter disappearing, then a phone bill that doubled overnight, then envelopes addressed to names I had never heard of showing up in my mailbox. She always had an explanation. "Oh, I was just tidying up. I must have picked up your letter by accident. You worry too much, Malcolm. Go enjoy your garden." And she would smile, the kind of smile people use when they are already guilty but think they can charm their way through it. Still, I wanted to believe the best of her. She had lost her sister too. Sometimes I would find her in the kitchen late at night, looking at old photographs of Lorna and crying softly. Once she said, "You were good to her, you know that? Not many men stand by through sickness." I told her, "Love is not a duty. It is a promise." She nodded, wiping her face, but her eyes looked elsewhere, calculating. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm. She found part-time work at a clinic, or so she claimed, and started coming home later and later. I figured she was rebuilding her life. That was the plan, after all. On Sundays, she joined me for breakfast, eggs, toast, and the old habit of reading headlines aloud. She laughed at how I still circled articles with a pen. She teased me for keeping receipts in envelopes labeled by month. "Lord, Malcolm, you organize like the IRS." I smiled. That is how you catch mistakes before they catch you. It was supposed to be a joke. But looking back, I think she heard it as a warning. By late summer, her name had started showing up on my mail again. Not full letters, just small things, advertisements, offers, banking promotions. I asked about it once. She waved a hand. "Probably a computer mix-up. You know how these companies sell names." I let it go, because trusting family feels easier than suspecting them. If you had asked me then, I would have said life was peaceful again, slower, maybe a little lonelier, but manageable. I had my records, my garden, my porch, and enough memories of Lorna to fill the silence. But peace built on denial never lasts long. Would you like me to continue with Section 5? Suspicion trigger, 700 to 900 words. Next, where Malcolm begins to notice the first signs that Vanessa's temporary stay is turning into a quiet takeover. The first sign of trouble came disguised as routine. A missing envelope. A bill paid twice. A quiet lie wrapped in convenience. One afternoon, I noticed a statement from my credit union sitting on the counter, already opened. Vanessa was wiping the kitchen counter, humming like she always did when she was nervous. "Did you open my mail?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She froze for half a second, then laughed, too quickly, too light. "Oh Lord, Malcolm, it was mixed in with mine. You know how these mail carriers are." She smiled, slid the envelope toward me, and changed the subject before I could reply. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, reading the statement again. There was a 600 online purchase from a store I did not recognize. I circled it with a red pen. It was not about the money. It was about the pattern. Firefighters are trained to spot patterns before flames form. A faint smoke, a sound, a smell. You learn to trust the smallest details. And that night, the smell of something wrong filled the air. The next few days, I began paying attention in ways I had not before. The mail started arriving later. Some envelopes never came at all. A new tablet appeared on the coffee table. Vanessa said she got it on sale. I saw the same model listed in that 600 transaction. Still, I said nothing. I wanted to be sure before accusing anyone. You do not yell fire unless you see the smoke yourself. 2 weeks later, I saw more smoke. My debit card declined at the grocery store, first time in my life. The cashier smiled apologetically while I checked my phone. My checking account was overdrawn by $800. I went home, pulled out my laptop, and logged into my online banking. 3 new auto-pay accounts had been added under my name, none of them mine. I stared at the screen for a long time, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. When Vanessa came home that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread out like evidence in a courtroom. She walked in with a takeout bag, still on her phone, laughing softly. When she saw me, she hesitated, just enough to confirm what I already knew. "Malcolm, you look serious. What's wrong?" I gestured to the statements. "You want to tell me what these charges are?" Her smile faltered, but only slightly. "Those are probably bank errors. You know technology these days. 3 separate companies, 3 auto payments, all connected to the same new email address, which I do not use. She put the takeout on the counter and crossed her arms. Are you accusing me of something? I am asking. Because if you are, that is a serious accusation to make against family. There it was again, family, her shield and sword in every argument. I did not answer. I gathered the papers and slid them into a folder. From now on, I will handle my own accounts. Please do not touch the mail. She laughed again, that same brittle sound that hides panic. You think I need your money? Please. But I saw her hands tremble when she reached for her drink. That night, I could not sleep. I heard her moving around after midnight, her footsteps soft but restless. Then came the sound of her voice, low, urgent, from the living room. I left my door cracked just enough to listen. He will not sign anything unless I find the right way to bring it up. I know, just give me time. The deed is still in his name. My heart thudded once, slow, deliberate. She paused, whispering again, her voice barely above a breath. No, he never checks his email. Trust me. Once it is notarized, he cannot undo it. The sentence hung in the air like smoke curling toward the ceiling. I eased the door closed, sat on the edge of the bed, stared into the dark. She was trying to get the house deed signed. Somehow, someway. She had gone from borrowing to scheming. I thought about all the times I had left my papers out, the old file cabinet in the study, the passwords written on a sticky note near the printer. Trust makes you careless. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. I brewed coffee, then went to the study and locked the cabinet. I gathered every document, property title, insurance records, tax receipts, and placed them in a fireproof box. I slid it under my bed. When Vanessa came downstairs, she acted like nothing had changed. Morning, she said, still in her robe. You are up early. Habit, I said, not looking up. She poured herself coffee and sat across from me. You know, Malcolm, you should really let me help with paperwork. You keep everything on paper like it is 1980. I prefer things I can hold, I said. Paper does not lie. She chuckled, but her eyes flicked to the folder near my elbow. She noticed it was new, blue instead of my usual brown. That was enough to make her nervous. The rest of the day passed quietly, but her movements changed. She avoided eye contact. She stopped humming. She kept her phone close and her smile closer. That night, I opened my window and let the air move through the room. Atlanta nights carry a certain stillness, thick with humidity and the hum of cicadas. But beneath that sound, my instincts hummed louder. There is a moment every firefighter recognizes, when the air changes, when the oxygen shifts just before the flames appear. You feel it before you see it. That was where I was now, standing in the doorway of a different kind of fire. And this time, I was not running into it. I was preparing to watch it burn itself out. The letter arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Plain envelope. No return address. Just my name typed neatly across the front in black ink. I almost tossed it onto the kitchen counter with the rest of the mail, but something about the weight of it, too stiff, too deliberate, made me stop. Inside was a single page, stamped with the name of my bank and a bright red banner at the top. Home Equity Loan Confirmation. I read the first sentence twice, making sure I was not imagining it. Dear Mr. Malcolm Reed, we are pleased to confirm your request for a home equity line of credit in the amount of $85,000, secured against your property at 213 Valley Creek Road. My throat went dry. There were words my mind could not process fast enough. Approved, signature verified, funds pending, each one a flare in the dark. And then I saw it. At the bottom, in blue ink, was my name. Or at least, someone's version of it. The loops were wider, the pen pressure uneven. It looked close enough to pass a quick glance, but to a man who had signed his name on fire reports for 3 decades, it looked foreign. A forgery wearing my handwriting like a cheap suit. I stared at it until the page started to blur. The quiet of the house pressed against my ears like smoke before the flames. When Vanessa came home that evening, she was laughing on her phone, voice high and smooth. Girl, I told you he still has no clue. The old man's memory ain't what it used to be. I froze. She walked right past me, still talking, heading toward the back porch. He keeps every document in this little wooden file cabinet. All I need is that notarized signature, and boom, it's done. My hand clenched around the letter. She was talking about me, about my wife's house. About our life's work turned into leverage. Nah, he trusts me. You know how lonely folks get when they lose someone. You just have to keep them comfortable. I felt something inside me twist, a slow, deep burn that started in the chest and spread outward. But I stayed still. Yelling is what people expect. Stillness is what they fear. When she hung up and turned back inside, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the letter folded neatly in front of me. Vanessa, I said softly. She jumped. Oh, Malcolm, you scared me. Who were you talking to? She blinked, too fast. Just a friend from the clinic. You know, gossip. I tapped the paper. About me? Her eyes dropped to the letter. What's that? Home equity loan. Approved under my name. With my forged signature. I don't know anything about that. Then you will not mind if I call the bank and clear it up. She hesitated, just one beat too long. And in that heartbeat, I saw everything I needed. Fear. Calculation. Regret trying to dress itself as confusion. You really think I'd do something like that? She whispered. I do not think, Vanessa, I said quietly. I confirm. I stood, walked past her, and took my keys off the counter. Where are you going? To do what you should have done before you picked up a pen that was not yours. At the bank, the air conditioning hit cold and hard. The manager on duty, a young woman named Regina, recognized me. Mr. Reed, what can I do for you? I slid the letter across the counter. Someone opened this loan in my name. Her face changed fast. That is serious. May I see identification? I handed her my ID and waited while she clicked through her computer. Her expression tightened with every keystroke. Sir, this account was processed 3 days ago. The signature was verified by uploaded documents. What kind of documents? Deed copy, driver's license, death certificate of joint owner, notarized authorization form. I felt my knees weaken. Death certificate of joint owner? Yes, ma'am. Sorry, sir. It says joint ownership transferred from Mrs. Lorna Reed, deceased, to Ms. Vanessa Harris, by surviving relative authorization. For a moment, I could not breathe. Vanessa had used Lorna's death certificate, my wife's, to claim she was co-owner of my home. Can you print the application file? I asked, voice steady despite the storm rising under it. She nodded, hit print, and slid the pages across the counter. There it was, Vanessa's name, her handwriting, my forged signature, and the notary stamp of someone I had never met. I will be filing a fraud report, I said. Immediately. Regina's tone softened. I will flag the account. The funds are frozen. You should contact the police and bring these papers. I left the bank with a folder under my arm and a weight in my chest that felt heavier than any fire tank I had ever carried. Back home, the house looked different. The same furniture, the same garden, but everything had a shadow now. Vanessa was sitting on the couch watching TV, pretending the world was still intact. She smiled when she saw me. Hey, you're back. Everything okay? Fine, I said, setting the folder on the table. Just needed some air. Her eyes flicked toward the folder for half a second, then back to the screen. Good. Dinner's almost ready. Great, I said. We ate in silence. She talked about a coworker. I nodded at the right times. But inside, every second was calculation. After she went to bed, I opened the folder again. The papers were clear, irrefutable. Her forged application, her fake notary, her attempt to steal a life she did not build. I sat there until dawn, letting the anger cool into something sharper, resolve. There would be no shouting, no confrontation that could be twisted into drama. Only documentation. Only truth. At sunrise, I opened my old firefighter notebook, the one I used to carry for incident logs. I wrote on the first page, House Fire, Harris Case. Origin, fraud. Then, I began writing details like I would for any investigation. Date, time, evidence, witnesses. I printed copies of the documents, photographed them, emailed them to myself and my attorney friend, Carol Dawson, who had served with Lorna on a community housing board. At 9:15, I received a text from Carol, come by my office at noon. Bring everything. Vanessa slept in until 10. When she finally came downstairs, hair wrapped in a scarf, coffee mug in hand, she smiled like it was just another morning. I smiled back. I'm heading out for a bit. Oh, where to? Downtown. For what? Just tying up loose ends. She raised an eyebrow, curious, but I walked out before she could ask another question. At Carol's office, I laid everything out on the desk. She read quietly, page by page, her brow tightening. She used Lorna's death certificate, she said softly. That is a felony. Identity fraud, forgery, attempted theft. I do not want to destroy her, I said. I want to stop her. Then we start here, she replied. Police report, fraud affidavit, legal notice of revocation. Do not confront her yet. Let the paper speak first. That advice became my anchor. No shouting. No anger. Just truth, documented and timed. That night, I came home to the smell of her cooking. Fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread. The same meal Lorna used to make when she wanted to fix things between us after an argument. Vanessa smiled when I walked in. I thought we could have dinner together. You seemed stressed lately. I looked at her and wondered if she knew how much I already knew. Thank you, I said simply. It smells good. We ate in near silence again. She tried to fill the air with small talk, but her eyes kept drifting toward the folder still sitting on my side table. When she went to bed, I took one last walk through the house. I paused in Lorna's garden, where the roses were finally blooming again. The air smelled of wet soil and jasmine. I whispered to the night, I will protect what you built. Then I locked every door, checked the alarm system, and sat by the window until the first pink light of morning reached across the porch. The betrayal was real. The proof was solid. And for the first time in weeks, I did not feel powerless. I felt prepared. Because this was no longer a story of anger. It was a story of reclaiming peace through patience. And when the fire comes to your doorstep, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stand still and let the truth burn bright enough to be seen. The house was quiet again, but silence felt different now. It no longer carried peace. It carried truth, raw, heavy, and uninvited. I sat in my recliner, the same one Lorna used to tease me about. She said it looked like a retirement throne. Now it felt like a courtroom chair. The folder of evidence lay open on the table, pages spread like a crime scene. My coffee had gone cold. The air conditioning hummed against the walls, steady, like the breathing of an old friend trying to calm me down. Grief and betrayal share the same room in the heart. One enters quietly, the other kicks the door down. I had buried Lorna 3 years ago, but that loss had been clean, painful, yes, but honest. This one was different. This was rot disguised as family. I had not cried when the bank called. I had not shouted when I heard Vanessa's voice mocking me over the phone. Instead, I felt something colder, something slower. A flame without smoke, the kind that creeps through the walls before anyone notices. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and remembered an old saying from the firehouse. Never let panic burn faster than oxygen. Captain Rivera used to repeat that every time we ran into a blaze. The moment you let fear outrun your breath, you lose control, and control is the only thing that keeps you alive. That line echoed in my mind now. If I let anger move faster than reason, Vanessa would win. If I shouted, she would twist it. If I broke, she would play the victim. I opened my eyes and looked around the room. Every corner of that house carried Lorna's touch. The framed scripture by the stairs, the quilt she sewed during chemo, the glass angel on the mantel. These were not things to fight over. They were things to protect. I whispered to myself, you are not fighting Vanessa. You are protecting Lorna. And that changed everything. I stood, walked to the window, and looked out over the yard. The evening sun hit the garden fence, painting the roses in shades of gold and rust. I thought of the fires I had fought, the houses I had watched collapse, the lives I had seen rebuilt from ash. This would be no different. Fire takes what it wants, but it always leaves something behind, clarity. I began to think methodically, the way I had at every emergency scene. Step 1, secure the perimeter. Step 2, assess the damage. Step 3, control the spread. Step 1 meant no more trust, no more open doors. Step 2 meant facing the fact that betrayal had lived under my roof. Step 3 meant doing what was necessary, legally, not emotionally. I pulled out a notepad and wrote down a new plan. 1. Call attorney to file fraud report officially. 2. Install new camera-facing driveway and porch. 3. Contact locksmith for secondary bolts. 4. Speak with the bank fraud investigator Monday morning. 5. Stay silent. Let her reveal herself. I stared at those 5 steps and felt something settle inside me. Not peace exactly, but balance. The kind you get when you finally stop running from the flames and start managing them. Around midnight, I walked outside. The street was empty, only the low hum of cicadas filling the air. I sat on the porch steps, elbows on my knees, and watched the faint glow of the city in the distance. When you are a firefighter, you learn that destruction has rhythm. A spark, a hiss, a roar, then silence. People think fire is loud, but it is not. The loud part comes from panic, from humans losing order. Fire itself is focused, methodical, patient. That is what I decided to become: focused, methodical, patient. Vanessa's betrayal hurt, but anger would not fix it. Only precision would. I thought back to the first day she arrived, the way she hugged me, the tears in her eyes, the promise that she would find her footing. I had wanted to believe her so badly that I ignored every instinct that told me something was off. I had spent my life teaching young firefighters to trust their instincts, to never walk past a door that felt warm to the touch. Yet here I was, ignoring the heat until the house almost burned down around me. It was a bitter truth to swallow, but it was also freeing. I realized something that night. I could forgive her one day, maybe, but forgiveness did not mean access. Forgiveness without boundaries is just another invitation for harm. I looked down at my hands. The same hands that had pulled strangers out of burning homes now trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of restraint. Lorna always said I was the calm one. She used to joke that my heart beat at the same pace whether I was cooking breakfast or dragging a hose through a burning hallway. That calmness was my strength. And tonight, I would use it again. I whispered her name once more, just to feel it steady me. Lorna, I am doing this right. The porch light flickered as a moth brushed against the bulb. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked and a door closed. The world kept moving, indifferent to the battles fought inside quiet houses. I took a slow breath, exhaled, and whispered the same mantra Captain Rivera drilled into us before every call. Stay steady. Control the burn. Tomorrow would bring paperwork, police reports, and confrontation. But tonight, I had something stronger than rage. I had clarity. I turned off the porch light, locked the door, and stood for a long moment in the dark living room. My reflection stared back from the window. Older, heavier, but still standing. For the first time in months, I felt the kind of calm that comes only after you stop hoping someone will change and start preparing for when they do not. I was done reacting. It was time to respond. And when morning came, it would not find a broken man. It would find a man who had decided that truth is the only fire worth feeding. The next morning, I woke before dawn. Old habits. Firefighters never really stop waking up early. But today, the silence had a different temperature. Not the calm of peace, the calm before movement. I brewed coffee, strong and black, and sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and pen. Each sip steadied my thoughts. Each line I wrote turned chaos into order. This was not about revenge. This was about documentation. At 8:01 a.m., I dialed First Georgia Community Bank, the same number printed on the forged home equity letter. After 2 automated menus and a hold that stretched for nearly 10 minutes, a woman with a soft Southern accent answered. Good morning, sir. This is Carol in Account Services. How may I help you today? My name is Malcolm Reed. I need to report potential identity fraud and an unauthorized loan connected to my home address. Her tone sharpened immediately. I can help with that, Mr. Reed. Do you have the loan account number? Yes, I said, reading from the photocopy I had made the night before. It's 771-4435. The line went silent for a few seconds, keys clicking faintly in the background. Sir, that loan is listed under your name. Opened 7 months ago for $42,000. My hand tightened around the phone. That is incorrect. I never applied for any home equity loan. Carol's voice softened. I understand. We can begin a fraud investigation immediately. I will email you an affidavit to sign and return with a notarized ID copy. Once that's received, the loan will be frozen and the account reviewed for falsified documents. Do you have the signature on file? I asked. Yes, sir. Would you like me to email it to you for verification? Please do. When I opened that email 10 minutes later, I stared at the attached image for a long time. It was my name, Malcolm J. Reed, written in my late wife's cursive. Lorna had signed this. Only she had not been alive for 3 years. That was the moment something inside me went still. Not broken, still. Vanessa had used my wife's old medical forms, the ones that carried both our names. She must have found them in the file cabinet Lorna used to keep labeled by month, every bill and letter organized by her steady hand. She used grief as a key, I whispered. I drove downtown to the office of Connie Harper, a family friend and attorney who had handled Lorna's estate years ago. Connie was one of those women who looked both fierce and kind at the same time. Silver hair cropped short, dark-rimmed glasses, and a voice that could calm a courtroom or cut through one. When I walked in, she looked up from her desk and smiled. "Malcolm Reed," she said warmly. "It has been too long. What brings you back here? And please tell me it is not trouble." I placed the folder on her desk. "It is trouble." She scanned the first few pages, the loan letter, the bank emails, the forged signature. Her expression shifted from mild concern to quiet anger. "Lorna's handwriting," she said softly. "But this could not be her. She has been gone 3 years," I finished. Connie leaned back, folding her arms. "And this was your sister-in-law?" "Yes. Vanessa Harris. She forged documents using your deceased wife's information to secure a loan on your house. That's felony fraud, identity theft, and possibly forgery under Georgia Code 16-9-1. This is serious." I nodded, calm but resolute. I am not looking to destroy her. I just want the truth to stand where lies used to live. Connie smiled faintly. "You always had a way with words. Let's start properly." She reached for a yellow legal pad. "You will need 1. A notarized affidavit from the bank. 2. A copy of your wife's death certificate. 3. The forged document with the signature. 4. A statement from you describing discovery and motive. I can get all of that by tomorrow." She looked up at me. "Malcolm, do you have a security system?" "Yes, 2 Ring cameras, front and back." "Good. Download all footage showing her entering the office or accessing files. Date it, label it, store it in multiple drives. Evidence disappears fast when family is involved." "I already made backups this morning," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "You are ahead of me." "Good." We spent the next 2 hours drafting a formal report for the district attorney's office. Every sentence was deliberate, every detail precise. By noon, she handed me a printed copy stamped with her signature. "Do not hand this to Vanessa or anyone else," she said. "Let the law handle her. Your job is to stay calm and invisible until it moves forward." That evening, I adjusted the cameras. The front door lens was angled slightly higher now, catching the street view where Vanessa parked her old Toyota. The backyard camera covered the fence line, motion triggered with audio. I added a third, a hidden mini lens above the home office shelf. It faced the filing cabinet. Not for paranoia, for protection. I tested each feed twice. Every timestamp synced. Every motion alert pinged my phone instantly. Technology had become my shield, quiet, consistent, loyal. Around 8 p.m., I walked into the office and stood in front of that filing cabinet. Lorna's handwriting still labeled each drawer: taxes, medical, mortgage, insurance. Vanessa must have come in here at night, thinking I would never notice. I remembered her words that one night I overheard through the hallway. "He will not even remember signing it. He forgets stuff all the time." My hands clenched at the thought, but I kept my breath steady. She had mistaken calm for weakness. I whispered to the empty room, "You will not mistake it again." Over the next 3 days, my kitchen table turned into an investigation board. Every bank statement, insurance letter, and checkbook was spread out like puzzle pieces. I built a spreadsheet on my laptop: date, amount, source, description, discrepancy. Old habits die hard. Firefighting had taught me to look for patterns, smoke trails, ignition points. Fraud leaves similar marks: irregularities, timing overlaps, missing explanations. I noticed small charges first: 230 here, for 120 there. Online transfers to accounts I did not recognize. Then larger ones: a 3,500 withdrawal under maintenance fees and a 2,000 transfer labeled property insurance renewal. Every transaction matched a time Vanessa had said she was handling errands. Every receipt I checked had her fingerprints all over it, literally. By day 4, I had confirmed 16,000 missing in total. But what hurt more than the money was the motive, the certainty that she thought she could do this because I was grieving. Lorna's death had left me soft, easy to trust, unwilling to question family. Vanessa had seen that softness and used it like a key. She used grief as a key. I said again, this time writing it at the top of my notes as a reminder. Friday morning, I took everything, the affidavits, the emails, the recordings, and walked into the DeKalb County Police Department, Economic Crimes Division. The desk sergeant looked up. "Can I help you, sir?" "Yes," I said evenly. "I need to file a report for identity theft, forgery, and property fraud." They led me to a detective's office. Detective Aria Collins, mid-40s, sharp posture, expression like she had seen every kind of deception. I laid out the folder on her desk. "This is everything you need," I said. She opened it, scanning quickly, eyebrows rising slightly. "This is thorough, Mr. Reed. Most people walk in with panic and half the story. You brought a case file." "I spent 30 years identifying risk," I said. "Different kind of fire, same principle." Collins smiled faintly. "We will open a formal case. You will get a case number and call back once it is verified. But I can tell you now, this is strong evidence." "Good," I said quietly. "I am not out for revenge. I just want this stopped." Her eyes softened. "That makes you different from most victims." As I signed the final page, she added, "When we move forward, you may need to record any new contact from her. Do not engage. Just record." I understand. That weekend stretched longer than any in memory. I kept myself busy, trimming the garden, cleaning the porch, fixing the mailbox. But the quiet hours tested me. Every creak of the house made me think of footsteps that were no longer welcome. On Sunday evening, as twilight settled, my phone buzzed with a notification. "Motion detected, front door." I opened the live feed. Vanessa stood on the porch, pacing, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice carried faintly through the mic. "He is losing it, Marcus. He is losing it completely. Once I get the paperwork, it will all be mine anyway." That single line sealed everything. I hit record and let the footage roll. For 20 minutes, she ranted, unaware the law had already turned against her. Then she left, slamming her car door hard enough to echo down the street. I sent the video file to Detective Collins that same night. Her reply came at midnight. "Got it. This helps a lot. Stay put, Mr. Reed. Do not engage." I stared at the message and set the phone down. Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance, the sound of weather building up to something inevitable. By Monday morning, I felt both exhausted and grounded. Every fact was documented. Every file was protected. The law was in motion, quietly but firmly. I stood in the kitchen, watching the sunlight catch the dust in the air. It looked like tiny sparks floating, harmless but alive. That was how betrayal worked, I realized. It begins as dust, barely noticeable, until it catches light. Then you see the whole thing, suspended in front of you, undeniable. I thought of Lorna again, how she used to say, "You cannot put out a fire you refuse to see." Now I saw it all. And unlike flames, betrayal does not consume everything at once. It lingers, testing whether you will let it grow. I would not. I checked my reflection in the glass door. The man staring back looked older, yes, but focused, the kind of focus that only comes from pain turned into discipline. For the first time in months, I felt ahead of the danger. Vanessa thought she was clever, but cleverness without conscience always burns itself out. As the rain began tapping softly against the window, I whispered to myself, "This is not revenge. This is restoration." The storm had passed by the time afternoon came, leaving the streets washed and glistening beneath the Georgia sun. The kind of calm that hums right before something breaks. I had just finished tightening the last screw on the new deadbolt when I saw the familiar dented Toyota creeping up the driveway. Vanessa's car. She parked crooked, half across the curb like always. A small, careless habit that now seemed like a confession. The Ring camera blinked red as it started recording. I took a slow breath and stayed still behind the curtain. My house smelled faintly of coffee and cedar polish, freshly cleaned, everything in its place. Peaceful. Prepared. The car door slammed. Then came the first voice, loud enough to stir birds from the fence. "Malcolm, what is this? Why can't my key work?" Her tone was high, shrill, panic wrapped in arrogance. She twisted the handle, rattled it twice, then tried the deadbolt. Nothing. The click of her heels echoed against the porch steps. "Malcolm, open this damn door. You are not going to treat me like some criminal." The irony almost made me smile. From the monitor on the counter, I watched the split-screen footage, front door, driveway, sidewalk. Vanessa's reflection flashed in the glass each time she hit the door, palms open, fingernails painted bright red like warning lights. "Malcolm!" she screamed again, voice cracking. "You changed the locks? Without telling me? After everything I have done for you?" I said nothing. The cameras were listening for me. So was Karma. A passing neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, paused on her porch across the street, holding her dog's leash tight. 2 more heads appeared from behind blinds. The neighborhood had become an audience. Vanessa kept pounding, her hair sticking to her face, the humid air clinging to her like consequence. "You ungrateful old fool," she yelled. "After all I sacrificed, you think you can just lock me out?" Her words hit the glass and fell flat. I stood in the hallway, steady as stone, watching every second through the live feed. Then a voice broke through hers, younger, uncertain. "Mom, stop." Her son, Andre, had appeared from the sidewalk. 17, tall, still in his high school hoodie, eyes wide with embarrassment. He had probably come straight from basketball practice, gym bag slung over his shoulder, hair damp with sweat. "Mom, please," he said quietly. "The neighbors are watching." Vanessa turned on him like a storm turning against the wind. "Do not tell me what to do. He cannot do this to us. This is our home too." Andre looked at her, then at the camera by the door, and realized what was happening. His shoulders sank. "Mom, he has cameras. You need to stop yelling." "I do not care about his cameras," she snapped, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Her fury was starting to fray. I stepped closer to the window now, just enough for her to see the shadow of me behind the glass. Her eyes caught mine for a fraction of a second, and in that instant, she understood. This was not the same man she had lied to, not the grieving widower she had manipulated. This was someone who had stopped reacting and started responding. Her expression changed, defiance softening into fear, then confusion. "What are you doing, Malcolm? Why are you doing this?" I remained silent. Instead, I lifted my phone, pressed record again, ensuring the camera caught everything. Her face twisted. "You cannot just pretend I do not exist," she shouted. "You are sick. You need help." Her son grabbed her arm. "Mom, please, you are making it worse." She jerked away. "Let go of me, Andre. I am not leaving. He cannot take everything from me." The words, "everything from me," hung in the air like a confession. Even Andre flinched. Then the distant sound of a police siren drifted closer, that rising wail that slices through the heat. Vanessa froze, realizing too late what the rest of the neighborhood already knew. Someone, maybe Mrs. Johnson, maybe one of the other neighbors, had called it in. Domestic disturbance, they probably said. And that was all it took. The patrol car turned the corner, blue and red lights flashing against the wet pavement. Andre stepped back instinctively, hands raised in cautious surrender. Vanessa's bravado cracked. The car stopped in front of my driveway, and 2 officers stepped out. 1 male, 1 female, calm, trained, assessing the scene. The male officer called out, "Ma'am, step away from the door." Vanessa spun toward them, voice pitching upward again. "Officer, please, this is my brother-in-law's house. He changed the locks while I was gone. He has lost his mind." "Ma'am, step away from the door," the officer repeated. "This is my house," she insisted. "He cannot just lock me out. He needs mental evaluation or something." The female officer moved closer, keeping her tone neutral. "Ma'am, can we see some identification, please? Do you live here?" "Yes, of course I do. I have been staying here for months." "Do you have a lease?" That question cut through her shouting like a clean blade. Vanessa blinked. "A what?" "A lease, ma'am. Proof of residence, rent payments, mail in your name." She hesitated. "No, but he said I could stay here. He's family." Meanwhile, the male officer turned to the door. "Sir, can you confirm your name?" I opened the door just enough for the chain to hold. "Malcolm Reed," I said calmly. "Homeowner." The officer nodded. "You are the one who called earlier about potential fraud, correct?" "Yes." He turned back to Vanessa. "Ma'am, you need to calm down. He is within his rights to change the locks. If you have no lease, you are considered a guest, not a tenant." Vanessa's face went pale. "You cannot be serious. You are just going to let him do this?" The officer's voice hardened slightly. "Ma'am, I am not letting him do anything. I am explaining the law." Andre rubbed his forehead, whispering, "Mom, please, let's go. You are just making this worse." She looked at her son, really looked, and for the first time, her expression broke completely. The anger drained, leaving behind something hollow. Tears welled up, mascara bleeding into her skin. I just wanted security, she said weakly. I stepped fully into the doorway now, face calm but firm. You wanted control, I said quietly. There is a difference. Her lips trembled. Malcolm, please. We are family. Family does not forge signatures, I replied. The officer gestured gently. Ma'am, let's go. You can collect your belongings later with police supervision. Vanessa stood there for a long moment, breathing hard, mascara streaked, eyes wild and lost, before the fight left her shoulders. She turned toward Andre. Let's go, baby. He did not respond. He just walked to the car and opened the passenger door for her, face unreadable. The officers followed her down the steps, making sure she left without another word. As her car pulled away, the camera caught the reflection of her face, not angry now, just defeated. I closed the door slowly, the new lock sliding home with a solid, final click. For the first time in months, the house was truly silent. No shouting, no manipulation, no pretense of love, just peace, and the faint hum of the security camera still recording, capturing the quiet aftermath of karma doing its work. I sat back in my recliner, exhaled slowly, and whispered to myself, fire put out. The afternoon light slanted through the blinds, striping the living room with bands of gold and shadow. Outside, the street had gone quiet again, the way it always does when drama ends and consequence begins. But this time, consequence had just arrived with 2 uniforms and a clipboard. I sat in my recliner, the same steady place where all of this had begun, when the knock came, polite, measured, official. Mr. Reed, it was Detective Aria Collins, the same officer I had given the evidence to a week earlier. She stood on the porch with another man, plain clothes, dark suit, badge clipped to his belt. Her expression was calm but purposeful. Afternoon, sir. May we come in? Of course, I said, stepping aside. They entered quietly. The air inside still smelled faintly of rain and coffee. Collins set her briefcase on the table and opened it, revealing a stack of papers. We received confirmation from the district attorney this morning, she began. The loan application you reported, it matches 2 other cases under investigation. Your sister-in-law, Vanessa Harris, has been linked to a wider financial fraud operation operating out of Fulton County. I said nothing. My hands folded in my lap, fingers laced, steady. She used your late wife's identity, Collins continued, and at least 2 other deceased individuals' information to file property loans through multiple small banks. We have verified forged signatures on each file. The man beside her, Agent Ruiz from the Financial Crimes Task Force, nodded. We served a warrant for her arrest this morning. She is currently in custody. For a long second, the words just hung there. I let them settle into the air like ash after a controlled burn. She is in jail? I asked finally. Yes, sir. Charged with fraud, forgery, and identity theft. There will likely be more counts once the full audit concludes. Outside, a small gust of wind rustled the garden, Lorna's roses shifting under sunlight. And her son? I asked quietly. Collins glanced at her notes. Andre Harris. He was present during the arrest. Cooperative. No charges. I nodded once. That was good. The boy deserved a chance to grow up without inheriting her mistakes. Would you like to see the report? Ruiz asked. He slid a folder across the table. I opened it and read the first page carefully. Formal, detailed, and personal. Defendant, Vanessa Marie Harris. Charges, fraud, forgery in the first degree, identity theft, attempted deception of a financial institution. Status, held without bail pending preliminary hearing. Each word felt like a nail sealing a coffin, not for revenge, but for closure. Collins watched me closely. I know this has been difficult, Mr. Reed. Most people would have reacted emotionally. You handled it by the book. I managed a faint smile. Firefighters learn early. Panic does not put out flames. She returned the smile. That calm probably saved you more damage than you realize. Ruiz gathered the rest of the papers. There's one more thing. The evidence you collected, the recordings, emails, surveillance footage, it was clean, admissible, and decisive. Without it, this might have taken months longer. That footage was for truth, I said. Not punishment. Truth can be punishment enough, he replied. They packed up to leave, promising to keep me updated through the legal process. At the door, Collins paused and looked back. She said something when we read her rights. She said quietly, "You should know." What did she say? She said she never meant to hurt you, that she just thought she deserved something back after losing her sister. But she also said, Collins hesitated, choosing her words carefully. She said you were too calm, that your silence scared her more than any shouting ever could. I looked out at the roses again. Silence is the sound of truth catching up. Collins nodded once, as if she understood, then left with Ruiz. The door clicked shut behind them. The quiet that followed felt different now. Lighter, cleaner, almost sacred. Just after sunset, I sat on the porch. The air was cool, the cicadas humming in lazy rhythm. Across the street, the Johnsons were talking softly in their driveway, glancing my way now and then, half curious, half respectful. Down the block, a patrol car cruised slowly past, headlights sweeping over the houses. Routine now. The system had taken over. My phone buzzed once, a text from Detective Collins. Update. Harris booked. Arraignment tomorrow at 9 a.m. You may attend if you wish. Evidence secure. Case number 472, BF. I typed a brief reply. Thank you, Detective. Justice moves quietly, but it moves. Then I set the phone aside and looked out across the yard. Lorna's garden lights flickered on, small solar bulbs tracing the path she used to walk every evening. The roses were blooming again, full and alive. I had not seen them this bright since before she passed. That is when I realized what had really been stolen. Not money, not paper, peace. And tonight, I had taken it back. I did go to the arraignment. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and stale coffee, same as every public building in America. Reporters stood outside with cameras. Fraud tied to multiple counties had caught their attention. When they brought Vanessa in, she looked smaller than I remembered. The orange jumpsuit hung loose around her frame. Her hands were cuffed, wrists trembling slightly. Her eyes found mine across the room, searching, pleading, maybe regretting. But I did not flinch. The judge read the charges, clear and unwavering. Her public defender entered a plea of not guilty, voice shaking. The prosecutor objected to bail, citing multiple victims and risk of flight. The judge agreed. Defendant will remain in custody until trial, he said. Hearing adjourned. A murmur rippled through the room. Vanessa turned once more toward me. For a second, I thought she might speak, some apology, some justification. But then her gaze dropped to the floor. As they let her out, Andre appeared in the back row. He looked like he had not slept. Our eyes met briefly. He walked over slowly. Mr. Reed, he said quietly, voice barely above a whisper. I am sorry for what she did. I really am. I studied his face, the same tired sadness I had seen in the mirror once. You are not her mistake, son, I said. Remember that. He nodded, eyes glassy. I do not know where to go from here. Forward, I said simply. Always forward. He wiped his face and left. That night, I sat at my desk, writing the day's date in a small leather journal. I had not kept one since Lorna's passing, but this felt like the right time to begin again. Today, I wrote, justice did not roar. It whispered, and that whisper was enough. I paused, thinking of everything that had happened. The screams at the door, the officer's calm professionalism, the way the truth unfolded on its own timetable. I used to believe justice came loud, with sirens, verdicts, and gavel strikes. But I learned something deeper. Real justice moves at the speed of dignity. It does not chase. It arrives. When I closed the journal, I felt the weight of everything lift, leaving behind something clean, almost holy. The clock ticked softly. The new locks glinted faintly in the lamplight. And from outside, the roses swayed in the evening breeze, unburned, untouched, and free. For the first time in a long while, I whispered a prayer. Not for revenge, not for punishment, but for peace, mine and even hers. Because some fires do not need extinguishing. They just need to burn out on their own. The house was quiet again. Not the uneasy quiet of waiting, but the kind that settles in after the storm has done its work. Every sound was clearer now. The hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, the faint rustle of leaves brushing the window. Peace has a texture. It feels heavier than silence, but lighter than guilt. For weeks, I moved through the house like a man learning it all over again. Every corner held a memory, not of betrayal, but of survival. The smell of coffee in the morning, the way sunlight fell across Lorna's quilt. It reminded me that peace is not something you find. It is something you build back piece by piece, once you stop letting people break it. The police updates came every few days, then slowed. Vanessa's trial date was months away, and I wanted no part in it beyond my testimony. The law would finish what it had started. I had already finished my part. Still, there was one loose end. Andre. The boy had been silent since the day of the arraignment. No calls. No messages. Then one evening, a letter arrived. Plain white envelope. No return address. Postmarked from Decatur. Inside were just a few lines, written in shaky penmanship. Mr. Reed, I am staying with a friend for now. I got a job at the car wash and trying to finish school. I just wanted to say thank you for not giving up on the truth. I miss Mom, but I understand now. Andre. I read it 3 times before setting it down. Then I went online and sent a quiet transfer through Western Union. $500. No note. No explanation. Enough to cover school fees, food, a bit of dignity. Not enough to create debt. I did not want gratitude. I wanted that boy to know that the world still had good men in it. Calm men, disciplined men. Men who do not raise their voice to prove they are right. Because if I had learned anything through all this, it was that boundaries are not walls. They are doors that only open for those who knock with respect. The next Sunday, I drove to the community center downtown. It was the same building where Lorna had volunteered years ago, running literacy programs for teens. The director, an old friend named Henry Jacobs, greeted me with a handshake and a knowing smile. Malcolm Reed, he said, I heard you were looking to get involved. What brings you back to the world of the living? Boundaries, I said simply. And second chances. He chuckled softly. You picked the right place. We got plenty of both here. That afternoon, I met the group, 6 boys, ages 14 to 17. They were loud, restless, carrying that teenage energy that feels like lightning without a grounding wire. I recognized the look in their eyes, the one that comes from not trusting anyone for too long. We sat in a circle of metal chairs, and I started with the truth. I am not here to preach, I said. I am here because I forgot what boundaries look like until I almost lost everything. So let's talk about that. How to build a life that no one can steal from you. They listened. Some nodded. Some avoided eye contact. But one, a kid named Jerome, maybe 16, raised his hand. What do you mean, no one can steal from you? People can steal anything. I smiled. Not discipline. Not peace. Not the truth you live by. The room went quiet. And in that silence, I saw what I had been missing, purpose. Firefighting had given me structure. Marriage had given me warmth. Loss had given me pain. But helping others, that gave me meaning again. I stayed late that day, locking up after the boys left. The smell of dust and floor polish lingered in the air. When I stepped outside, the sky was deep orange, the kind of sunset that looks like forgiveness. At home, I sat on the porch as the cicadas began their evening chorus. The garden lights flickered on one by one, tracing the path Lorna once tended. The roses were in full bloom now, stubborn, radiant, reaching toward light no matter how rough the season had been. I leaned back and thought about all the years I had spent letting trust mean permission. I used to think saying yes was kindness. But sometimes, kindness is saying no, quietly, firmly, without apology. I remembered the night Vanessa first moved in, the way she said, You have such a big house, Malcolm. It must be lonely. She had no idea that loneliness can be sacred. It gives you room to hear your own soul again. The porch light buzzed softly above me. For the first time in months, I did not check the locks. Not because I trusted anyone, but because I trusted myself. A few days later, I got another letter, this one from the Department of Corrections. It was short. Inmate Vanessa Harris requests no contact status confirmed. She has declined correspondence privileges. I folded the letter, set it aside, and whispered, Good. Forgiveness does not require conversation. Sometimes silence is the cleanest goodbye. I poured a cup of coffee, sat in the stillness, and realized that I did not hate her. I pitied her for letting greed eat through her heart the way fire eats through wood. You can rebuild a burned house. You cannot rebuild burned integrity. When the clock struck 10, I turned off the lights and stood by the window. Outside, the moonlight stretched across the yard, gentle and unbroken. No chaos. No guilt. No voices pounding on doors. Just the hum of a quiet house. And a man who had learned that strength is not in holding on. It is in knowing when to close the door and keep it closed.